Let's face it, business technology is frustrating and complex. So how do you make sure it works for your team? To make IT right, start the discussion at go-domain.com. You're listening to Discussions by Domain, a podcast for business leaders. Our discussions may be with people you've probably heard of before, but the majority of our guests are in the trenches, professionals like you and I, with the same challenges and struggles of keeping up in the Northeast. They're implementing strategies, overcoming hurdles. They're leading the fastest growing businesses in our region. My name is Anthony DeGraw, Director of Partnerships at Domain Computer Services, and the host of this show. When I'm not talking with business leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of Domain and the ups and downs of our own growth journey, as we intend to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show. Welcome to another episode of Discussions by Domain. I am your host, Anthony DeGraw, with Domain Technology Partners. Today, I am welcoming Meghan Popoleo, Director of Sales and Marketing at the O'Connor Group, who offers talent acquisition and human resources solutions out of King of Prussia, PA. Meghan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Anthony, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Great. So Meghan and I are going to be talking about how to retain your superstars. And in that area, we're specifically going to focus on some horror stories, number one. Number two, some statistics around employees looking and open to new roles since the pandemic has kind of settled in. I think we're almost a year into this now. Number three, we're going to talk about some retention ideas. And then the final point we're going to wrap up today's conversation with is all around building your dream team's bench, the bench of your organization. So Meghan, before we jump into all of that, those meaty topics, let's say, real quick, are you a coffee or a tea drinker to start us off?
Oh, I am coffee all day. I will do tea because it has caffeine, but for the most part, I'm coffee for life.
Love it. Now, do you have a local coffee spot that you love, or is it more of the brand name ones?
Well, I hate that I'm kind of going the brand name, but we have a Starbucks directly across the street from our house. So it makes it really convenient to just kind of dip over there in the morning. So I'm a Starbucks girl.
There we go.
By default.
Awesome. All right, let's jump into retaining your superstars. Give us a horror story. I haven't heard any of these, by the way, so you're going to catch me off guard with these.
Yeah, this one's going to shock you and actually scare you a little bit. I'm not going to lie to you. The reason this topic is so relevant to us just in general is because people, when the pandemic hit, people were originally so scared to lose their jobs. You know, who wouldn't have been, right?
Yeah.
But now that, people, the jobs are obviously starting to become, steadier and businesses are just kind of moving quicker, people are so ready to make a move. The problem that companies are facing now is that they're not focusing internally at their current employees and thinking about the best ways to retain them. So I always say that it starts at the very beginning with that onboarding program that you have in place. So we recently had an experience at a client. I'm obviously not going to share names, but we hired a person for them, and the person walked in and nobody knew he was starting. There was not one person there that was there to welcome him. He had no agenda. Nobody took him to lunch. It was just very uncomfortable, to be honest with you. And he quit after 2 days. And he was very gracious about it. And he just said, listen, it's not the right fit for me. And what he probably wanted to say was, I had no clue what I was walking into. When you think about starting a new job, it's the same thing as, going into the schoolyard when you're in middle school and not knowing anybody. It's a new school. So even just 2 days in, he was like, that's not the right fit for me. So that is a horror story from an HR perspective for us, because what we want to do is try to, prevent that from happening.
Wow, that is, and it's interesting because you would think that maybe that was picked up on throughout the interview process, but I'm
Mhm.
assuming that if if in this case this gentleman accepted the job, I'm
Yeah.
assuming the interview process went pretty well.
It
Uh,
did. It did go well. I mean, I not to put it on our recruiters, but our recruiters do a really nice job of taking time to get to know everybody and kind of highlighting what the experience was. But you know, what's on paper is not always reality when you walk into a new place. So yeah. So I guess though you have to practice what you preach, and that didn't happen in this case. And now we're back at square one, and we lost. They lost a lot of money in losing an employee, and lost a lot of time that could have been saved.
yeah, definitely. All right, and I know going into the next topic, there was some specific stats or one specific stat you wanted to mention and kind of speak on. I'm going to let you run with that, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So something interesting I saw recently, it was about 65% of employees are open to looking for new jobs now. And I think it was in the 30% pre-pandemic, and I'll have to get you those exact numbers, but it was interesting to me because Indeed also just put out an article that said that 2021 is the year of job switching. That's scary. That's a scary for a business owner, whether it be a small company or a large company, and people are just so much more open to making a job switch, and not to mention that many people are hiring people that are already employed rather than hiring unemployed people.
Yeah.
So that's something that every business owner has to keep on their radar.
So, how do you think the pandemic played into that? Like, part of my brain goes to if you treated your employees great during the pandemic. Let's say we've talked to a bunch of businesses. I'm not laying off an employee through this entire thing unless the whole entire ship's burning down. I'm paying my employees and all that, and they're going to know it and whatnot. I'm so sure there was other companies that they had to furlough or they took a quick proactive step because they didn't know what was going to come and they furloughed people. How has that been playing into this number at all?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that businesses under 100 employees, maybe even, my gosh, maybe under 75 employees, really that have that really family mentality, that just really have to do right by their employees and have that employee first mentality. They did a really good job of finding things that they can have their employees do, like making them more resourceful during the pandemic, and being those advocates for them and saying, I'm going to do every single thing I can before I let somebody go. I think that also right there is an indicator that you're going to make those employees such brand ambassadors for you that they're never going to want to leave you. So just to give you a real life example, we have about 42 employees, and our CEO said, I'm not laying off one person. I'm not cutting one person's salary. I'm doing every single thing that I can to get better and get through this as a team. And that's exactly what we did. And that makes me as an employee be loyal to my CEO and want to work here. So I think it has a huge part in those smaller companies. I think that was the way to go.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, we experienced the exact same thing, and to hear horror stories on one side, and not experience that yourself is, you're grateful for that experience. I do want to ask though, what do you think is the shift from say even you have loyal employees, right, that have been with you for a while, that got through the pandemic with you, and there's still 65% of people that are employed looking for new opportunities. What do you think it is on the employees side? What are they going through? What did they experience that now is making this number pop a little bit?
Yeah, that's another great question. I think the biggest thing that I can think of is that the opportunity of a remote workforce that they may have not been able to experience in the past. So, most of our business is virtual, right? So we had a pretty strong, um, service area in the Mid Atlantic region, but now with this virtual workforce only increasing, the opportunities are endless. So if I want to go take a job in California and I know that I can be remote 5 days a week, as long as there's obviously, a business there's business ability set up over in that different state, they're ready to go. People can just get up and go. So I think that is going to be huge, that people have had the chance now to work anywhere. I also think that money is always going to be a factor not everybody's money driven, but the millennials and the people who are coming out of, the people who are coming right out of college right now are very mission driven. So most of them want to feel like they're part of an organization that matters and really, aids in the community is sometimes more important to them than money. So kind of figuring out what each person wants is so important. But I think those are the two key things, like the ability to work anywhere and, the company's passion and innovative ideas on how they can make a difference.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think I think we used to get trapped, or we all prior to the pandemic, of like, I can only take really a role within my current geography where I want to raise my family or where I want to live or whatever the case may be. Or maybe I had to move to, let's say, New York City or Philadelphia or wherever, San Francisco, because I wanted to get into tech. Well, now the employees seem like that not just the employees, the companies have also seemed to shift it of, no, we can broaden our search for this because we're all remote anyway, and get an access to a larger talent pool. And then the talent pool is sitting there saying, yeah, maybe I want to go explore other opportunities that I would have never looked at because that company was based in Arizona and I was never going to live there.
Absolutely. That you summed it up perfectly. I think now is the time for people to kind of chase their dream and still do what they want to do. So I think that is going to be like the future of the workforce, to be honest with you.
Love it. So let's switch over to kind of the HR side of your brain, which is a spot of your organization that you guys really shine, and I'm super interested in. And we've had conversations on, but retaining these employees. Let's go maybe through a few of the top 10 retention ideas that you guys educate your customers on to keep these people engaged and in place rather than doing what we just talked about.
Yeah, absolutely. So this might just seem like a very simple word, but the word communication is so important right now. I don't think there's even an ability whatsoever to over communicate. Like the more that you're talking to your employees and getting to know them, the better. That is how you make obviously those standing like long-term relationships with them. I think people need a sense of transparency with a leader, but also a sense of optimism. So there's a combination that if a leader crosses and is way too optimistic and is over promising all of these things, that makes employees scared. And I think you go too transparent and make them feel, scared for the future based on how the company is doing. It's challenging. So finding that mix between optimism and transparency and over communicating to your people is huge. Something that we do that I think, for most of us, we're obviously all virtual right now, but, we all have our own clients and it's hard to talk to each other on a daily basis. So we try to have a monthly standing meeting and it's just at lunchtime and we just check in with each other and we just say, what's going on? Like, what's happening in your personal life? What milestones are, you experiencing with your family? Those things go such a long way. Not to mention throwing in little surprises that you can do for them. So even on that, that lunch meeting, we'll just send a Grubhub gift card for, $25 to each person an hour before we meet. And it's just a little surprise to hit their inbox. And, we survey our team and those little things just go such a long way and they don't cost a lot of money. So I think communicating is probably my number one and probably always will be. But then just kind of throwing in those little surprises to keep them like on their toes is always going to make a difference. And of course, food. You and I talked about that. Like everybody loves food. So like, how can you incorporate just like little things like that?
Yeah, no, I can speak more about everything that you say. Communication was big before the pandemic. It turned into the number one thing during, and we're still in it. So during the pandemic, right, you don't have this inner office communication. You don't have the pop up and just walk over. You don't have the coffee what they call it, the coffee pot topics
Yeah.
or the water
Mhm.
cooler topics. I guess
Water
that's the
cooler.
better
Yeah.
answer. None of
Yeah.
that's going on right now. And we are living more in these virtual worlds, and people are dealing with different dynamics. You may have Gen Z coming in who are, solo and, in their bedrooms potentially, and they have a certain situation. Then you have millennials with young families and trying to figure out schooling and daycare while two parents are both working remotely for some people. Then you have the older generations. They're trying to get used to all the technology that they quickly had to pop on that they typically could have avoided in the past because we could do a conference room or something like
Yeah.
that. So there's so many dynamics, and the communication tools are also all over the place. Funny enough, we were just on with Microsoft yesterday for an entire Microsoft Teams and Teams calling conversation about bringing all of these solutions into one platform so that people can at least get the user experience and communication down for one, instead of having to train across not 100, but let's call it 5
Sure.
to 10 platforms.
Yeah.
And then the user experience of like how they're building that out so that when you're on the cell phone, it looks the same as on the desktop, which looks the same as in the browser on the
Yeah.
iPad. So I think technology is going to continue to catch up. I think it was all here. It wasn't really playing well together, and they
Yeah.
had to do that.
No, you kind of said, you summed something up perfectly when it comes to, thinking about, IT can be very, not for you guys, but IT can be confusing for a lot of people. And when people are confident with their technology, it makes them such better employees. And I really truly mean that. Like, one of the things that we do is making sure that our employees have all the resources they need after their first week. And then we also obviously, keep in touch with them each week as they move through the onboarding process. But technology is so scary, and you said it right. Everybody's at different stages in their lives, so finding out what works for each person. So, a woman who has a young family, maybe she wants to do like, a family fun hour or something like that. Maybe the guys who want to go to happy hour, we have a virtual happy hour. And then maybe we have, resources for people who need to use technology. So kind of finding out what each person wants and what drives them and what makes them successful in the workplace is really so important. You can do that really easily just by a survey, like a 5-minute survey. You're going to find out so much.
Exactly. And then before we move on to the final, I want to go a little bit further on transparency.
Yeah.
This is one thing that I have been a huge advocate for my entire career, is that, and I think we're seeing a shift, especially now, but is transparency from the top down and from the bottom up. Not only does everybody at the top communicating and being transparent with where the company is, where we're going, what challenges we face, but also what opportunities do we face as well. And then also, I say from the bottom up, but what I really mean by that is almost this 360 understanding of not only how are you doing in the organization, but how is everybody else that you interact with doing in the organization. And then I take that even a step further. And then I think where B2B, the two areas that you and I live in, professional service, B2B especially, is this transparency with our customers. What exactly do you offer? At what price point does that come? How can I engage with you? How can I make it easier to engage with you? And just leading from the front on all of those areas, from both internally at your organization, but also externally. I think those companies that really grasp that and move that ball forward are going to see the most success.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I feel like when you're transparent to your team and to your customers, there leaves less imagination for like what could, for them to go in a different direction. You know what I mean? So for instance, like if I don't tell my team, I have a marketing team and a sales team. If I don't tell either of them, what I'm hoping for, or like, what I'm thinking for this customer, they're going to think, okay, well, does she like what I did? Does she not like what I did? You have to be transparent. But same thing with customers. Like if you're going out and, you're offering your services, but they're talking to a couple different companies, you could take out a lot of extra meetings in there if you just, practice transparency from the very beginning. So, I mean, I completely agree with you from a leadership standpoint, but also from, just an employee standpoint.
Yeah, we have this saying, it's not really our saying, but people are going to fill a gap, right, with either
Yes.
trust or suspicion. And I
Mhm.
think transparency removes that with them
Yep.
having to fill it with one or the other, right? If we have a really good relationship, hopefully you're going to fill that gap of unknown with trust. But if you don't know me from the hole in the wall, you're probably going to lead a little bit more to suspicion. And your employees are doing the same thing. If you're not
Yeah.
being transparent with them, they're going to, and based on your previous actions, they may
Mhm.
be filling that gap of knowledge or understanding with more suspicion, which I'm
Yes.
assuming would result in more turnover, which is
Oh my
part of the
gosh.
topic today.
Absolutely. Have you read the book Radical Candor by Kim Scott?
So our entire organization has lived off that book for, I mean, I've been here for 4 years and they've been talking about it since then. So yes.
We just finished. Today was the last day of book club. We did book club for our team, and we read that. And I think it was good that there was managers, and then there was also employees who were individual contributors in there, and there just it was just so good to see everybody on the same page, that to practice the same, just to practice all the different things they taught us in the book. And I just think that's a perfect way to just have a transparent team.
Yeah, it takes a little while to get up and running, but once you do, you
Yeah.
just get to move to the next level. So we have a software tool we use called 360score.me, but everybody in the organization, you have the org chart, then you have who works with who, and then everybody gets a certain weight. Like if I work directly with you, my weighting with you is higher than
Mhm.
myself and somebody, let's say, on the engineering team that I never talked to.
Wow.
But that being said, everybody that I engage with gets to anonymously give me feedback every single quarter. And
Okay.
it's weighted, and there's different grades, and we have our core values, and they have to rate each person on the core values and how they stand up. It's awesome. But then part of it is the comment section, which is feedback, and we're coached on how to give feedback, and it's led by that radical transparency or radical
Yeah.
candor,
Yeah.
especially. And in there, we talk about how we coach on how to give feedback. Right, the goal is to get better. What am I doing right? Where can I improve? Where maybe some areas for improvement, and then we go from there. And we've been doing it for probably 2 or 3 years now. So it's once a quarter. So we probably have 8 to 12 surveys under our belt,
That's
and
awesome.
it's awesome to see where the company has gone.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, I sound like you have an amazing. I know you've shared your culture with me before, and I think that companies who do that, who want to, utilize feedback to make people better, I just think that's amazing. We run on EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System,
Yep.
but when we give feedback, it's not anonymous, and so from a quarterly standpoint, the tool is called One Thing, and you have to go around and tell everybody what you want them to start doing and what you want them to stop doing, and that's including the CEO. So I look at my CEO and I tell her these things, and you know it's scary. It's so scary thinking about like giving feedback to someone's face, but it just makes us have really good, healthy disagreements in the workplace, and then we move on to the next thing. So I just think, I love that you guys do that. I love the anonymous part of it too.
Yeah,
But
I'll give some quick tips on the anonymous piece, right? Because some
yeah,
people want to know exactly where it's coming from. But
yeah,
what we found doing that first, the problem with it was some people still wouldn't give true transparency because, hey,
yeah.
I am giving feedback directly to the CEO. Like
Mhm.
there's a piece of it there.
Oh,
Or
yeah,
in reverse, the CEO is like, well, that person thinks this way because of X, Y, Z. So they don't really get to consume it because they put
totally get
something
it.
behind it. So
No,
anyway,
it makes
interesting
total
roadmap.
sense. Yeah, yeah, it's good. It's good to see what different companies are doing. So but I'll tell you, if you're doing anything like that, you're on the right path. We
Love
always
it.
like you really are. So
All right. Now, how do we build at the companies, especially companies like yourself and ours? I think you said about 42 people. We're about, I think, 67, 68 right now. How do we build that dream bench of players ready to join the organization when we need it? And as you guys you're going through this as well, it's just as much as us. Like as you're scaling and growing, I mean, there's a time where maybe you don't need anybody for 3 months, and then all of a sudden, Meghan brings in 25 customers, and
yeah,
all of a sudden we need people to backfill that, and we got to get them fast.
absolutely.
How do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I love this topic because something that we think about from internally at our business is our dream team. And of course, we spend most of our time focusing on our employees, that we have on our team, but we spend a lot of time, looking at who would make the best fit from a cultural perspective, but also from a skill set perspective, of course. But we have this bench, and we call it our bench, like any other, team would have.
Yeah.
And it's like, when you're thinking about basketball and you're going out and recruiting, new talent, we do the exact same thing. Even if we're not quite ready for them yet, we start to look, and I'll look on the market and see, who we like and who would be a good fit for us. And we start to draw them in. We start to set up one-on-ones with them. We invite them to company lunches. We, send them resources. And then, we might say, listen, there's not a spot for you yet, but we really like what you have to offer. And we'd hope you would come join us one day in the future. And I think this is so important to do, because then you have these people lined up that want to work for you. So you'll have somebody knocking down your door saying, how do I become, an employee at this organization? This works for any type of company. We spend a lot of time with our clients just bench building. So there's an IT company that has a pretty unique model. And they don't do managed service, but they do some pretty unique stuff. But he said, we're small, not ready to hire, but I just want really, really good people. So can you just start to look for those people for us? And that's what we do. So we'll spend a couple hours each week building his bench up for him. So I think that is probably one of the most proactive things you can do to get the culture that you want.
I love it. I have a couple questions on that if you still have some time. I know we're running up on time here.
Yeah.
One question is who at your customer or internally for you guys owns that process? Because that's we've been having more and more conversations about this. And I'm just wondering who you think is the best fit to own that result or own that process.
Absolutely. So I love referrals. So if you think about, the people that you have on your team, and, for instance, we have this one recruiter and he's awesome. He's probably 5 years out of college. We want more of him. So we say to him, listen, where do we find your friends? Where do we find more of you? And, we instilling an employee referral bonus program at your business, whether it be $500 or $5,000, whatever it is, that is probably the best way you can do that.
Okay.
If you don't have an internal recruiter or you don't have an internal HR person, this could lay with the division leaders. So for instance, we're half HR, half recruiting, so that the division leaders will, work with their teams to help, their teams start to source people. But I think if this could live in the human resources or the recruiting part of your business, that's probably the best place. But that bonus program is huge. If you don't have one, everybody should get one.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's awesome. Our best hires from not only an effectiveness, but also from I want to call it a length of stay, meaning how long they stay with us. From an internal referral is huge compared to if we use an outside party or some random connection or something like that. So yeah, I couldn't back that up more. Well, I know we're right up on time, Meghan. Any parting words or another question I like to ask is people in the Northeast that you think our audience should know a little bit more about? So anybody that's helped you or a center of influence for you that maybe somebody should do a little extra digging on after this episode, and maybe even we can get them on the podcast.
Oh, I have so many. That's such a loaded question. Well, I would like to highlight, so we are big advocates in the community, and we have we have this organization internally called Connectors Who Care. And it's a group of us, and we pick a different nonprofit per month and either donate our time, our resources, our money, whatever it is. One of my favorites is called Bringing Hope Home. They're based in Malvern, out in Malvern, Pennsylvania, and they basically help families who are battling cancer, pay household bills, and just kind of get through the process that they're experiencing. They are a phenomenal organization with just really dynamic people, and I would love to just highlight them. So thanks for asking.
I love that. So we will make sure everybody listening that we link to that organization in the show notes, as well as Meghan's LinkedIn profile and the O'Connor Group's website. So if you want to learn more or reach out, we can connect you. Obviously, you can always reach out directly to myself and I can connect you to Meghan. So Meghan, thank you so much for coming on. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Meghan, Director of Sales and Marketing at the O'Connor Group, offering talent acquisition and human resources solutions out of King of Prussia, PA.
Yeah,
Thank you, Meghan.
Thanks, Anthony. Thanks for having me.
To ensure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in iTunes or your favorite podcast player. This guarantees that every episode will get delivered directly to your device. To help us get the word out, share with a friend, leave a review, and check out our discussions on the web at go-domain.com/podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.